An essential aspect of learning any language is learning how to count, at least up to a certain number. And in our course in Hindi, we're going to try to get to at least 30 in our course, if not higher. And really the best way to learn how to count is to just practice it every single day until it commits to memory. And you can use a lot of things in your environment to help you with that. So if you're helping your parents make dinner in the evening, and you can count the number of vegetables and fruits that you use, or you can count the number of crayons in your crayon box, or the number of books in your bedroom. So there are a lot of things you can use in your environment to practice counting in Hindi, and the more you practice, the more it'll commit to memory. So for now, let's start with 1 to 10. Ek is 1, do is 2, teen is 3, char is 4, panch is 5, छः is 6, सात is 7, आठ is 8, नौ is 9, दस is 10. So if I say it quickly, एक, दो, तीन, चार, पाँच, छः, सात, आठ, नौ, दस. Now I want to point something out that's pretty important about that word 8. For 8 is at. Do you hear at the end of the word how there's a h sound after the t at the end of the word? At. At. So it's not ought, like I ought to go to the store today. It's at. There's a h sound attached to the t, which is really important for correct pronunciation. So it's not like someone won't understand what you're saying if you say ought instead of ought, but it makes the difference in someone recognizing if you are speaking from someone who speaks Hindi natively or someone who doesn't. And of course, I know we don't speak Hindi natively because we're growing up in the United States and we speak English here, but you really want to nail that pronunciation because it makes a difference in your conversation quality when you're talking to someone. So let's go over 1 to 10 again. एक, दो, तीन, चार, पाँच, छः, सात, आठ, नौ, दस. I also want to point out that no number. Some people say no, like yes and no, and people will understand what you mean by that. But again, if you really want to pronounce it correctly, it's pronounced no, sounding more like the word na. So it's pronounced no. Let's do it again. एक, दो, तीन, चार, पाँच, छः, सात, आठ, नौ, दस. Very good. So again, I really encourage you to practice this on your own at home throughout the day. When you're brushing your teeth, count the number of seconds that you brush your teeth for and say एक, दो, तीन, चार, पाँच, छः, सात, आठ, नौ, दस. Knowing how to count in Hindi will become very helpful to you on all of your visits to Hindi or even in talking to your elders, and use it as a way to memorize even your age. So if you are 8 years old and notice the connection in our sentence, मैं 8 साल का हूँ, versus if you are 6-year-old and you would say मैं 6 साल का हूँ, or मैं 6 साल की हूँ for feminine, or मैं 8 साल की हूँ for feminine. Okay, let's move on to our 11 through 20 now. 11 is 11, 12 is 12, 13 is 13, 14 is 14, 15 is 15, 16 is 16, 17 is 17, 18 is 18, 19 is 19, 20 is 20. So if I were to say it quickly, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And again, I would encourage you to practice this in counting seconds, and the more you practice, the more it will commit to memory. Now let's go over some connections of some of these numbers. And observing similarities and patterns is a really great way to be very insightful when you learn a language. So just notice some of the connections, and did you see some of the patterns where some of the words between 1 to 10 and 11 to 20 sounded kind of similar? Not all of the numbers, but some of them. So like look at the number for 3 and 13. 3 is tin and 13 is tera. Don't they sound kind of similar? The beginnings of the words sound kind of similar. Tin, tera. Tin, tera. They sound kind of similar, right? And look at 4 and 14. Jar and joda. The beginning sounds sound similar. Look at 5 and 15. Panch, pandra. 7 and 17. Sat, satara. 8 and 18. At, atara. Now the value in knowing that and being able to recognize patterns is because sometimes even if you don't know a word, if you don't understand what a word means or you haven't heard that word before, by observing what the word is, you might be able to make out some clue or give you some clue about what that word means. So a prime example of that is that when I was learning to count in Hindi, and I didn't know what the word atara meant, but I recognized that it sounded similar to 8, the number 8, which I did know, at. Atara sounded similar to at. So I had a clue that somehow this number is related to the number 8. Maybe it means 28 or 38 or 18. I didn't know until I looked it up. But I did have a clue that somehow this word is related to the number 8. And recognizing those types of patterns and being observant and paying attention when you learn a language can be extremely powerful. So let's go over all of these numbers again. 1 to 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 to 20, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Very good. Practice every day and you'll be an expert.